Welcome to Widow's Bay. There's so much to see here. Come with me. I'll show you around. There is something about these seafaring towns of superstitions, their tall tales.
What a strange time to be alive. Two super good mystery box shows that somewhat resemble each other at points, both having episodes involving characters taking mushroom trips to reveal some secrets, and both coincidentally taking place in the season's 5th episode. Episodes released within a week of each other. I'm starting to feel like I'm inside of a mystery box show at this point. Either way, we're jumping back into Widow's Bay today, and it starts off with a man in the snow finding some mushrooms to eat. Now, this could be a reference to the winter referred to as the Storm from Hell, where all of the residents had to hide inside the church and cannibalize each other, or this could potentially be the very first winter from when the island was officially settled upon. Either way, jumping back to the present, Tom sets up a curfew and shuts down all recreational activities, with the confirmation of the superstitions coming to life and fearing for the tourists' safety. He tries keeping his son Evan in the office, with him bringing up that the Reverend and him were actually friends and wondering if he's okay. Yet, Tom doesn't want to talk about it, which has been pretty consistent within their dynamic, and we'll later see how Tom's concern for his son will be proven right, though he can really only blame himself for keeping him on such a short leash and not communicating properly. There was a really funny moment when we cut to the funeral service of the Reverend, where some guy was speaking for him, very confused on how he died and admitting he barely knew him too, only for someone to remind everybody that they're not required to speak, especially if they don't have anything good to say. And back in the Reverend's office, we see as the crew is searching for clues, finding some scratches on the Reverend's desk spelling out "My eye is open" multiple times, with Tom finding what looks like similar mushrooms to the opening of the episode on his desk. Tom looks through the phone and realizes the Reverend tried to call him and another number a lot. They tried calling it and eventually set up an appointment with a shaman. Patty recognizes him as
Todd O'Connor?
Hey Patty, and surprised that he's a drug dealer, but he defends that he's not a drug dealer and is actually a shaman, despite the cocaine he possesses. They bring up the mushrooms and he claims it's called chusite, stating that he doesn't step anywhere near that stuff. And when hearing of the Reverend's death, he assumes that on the Reverend's trip, he didn't like the answers he got. He brings up one guy named Brian Morrison, claiming that he encountered something he couldn't talk about while on the shrooms. But he did end up calming down after the trip and becoming a much less hostile person, the shrooms having changed him completely, despite him losing some pretty major motor skills. But nowadays, he was a happy guy, except apparently his girl can't get him down at night. This could be due to some post-mushroom-induced PTSD, and considering how unseriously this shaman seems to take every situation, it's safe to say that Brian Morrison had a much worse time than described. Either way, he brings up that Brian drew something repeatedly that he saw on his trip, in what looks like a regular, unimpressive hand. A hand we'll later see Tom drawing when he's blacking in and out. Either way, the shaman brings up that they can take the mushrooms, and Tom's very against the idea, but Wick and Patty seem on board, letting the shaman know that Wick's gonna go ahead and take the mushrooms himself. And after Tom receives a call about a guy trying to overthrow the curfew, he realizes that he was accidentally given the mushrooms instead, with the shaman confusing Tom for Wick. The shaman tries to put him at ease in the worst way possible.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's okay. Just sip it slowly.
What? I finished it.
And even trying to calm him down by letting him know it's only a 12-hour experience. Tom is worried about Evan for obvious reasons, but Patricia promised that she'll get on top of things, with everyone trying to calm Tom down inside of a nice peaceful room, only to lay him down next to a giant lizard. Wick doesn't help the situation by urging Tom not to mess things up and to really find some answers. And the shaman only makes things worse by announcing he's gonna go ahead and head out and leave Wick and Patty to help guide Tom on a trip, two people who are not licensed trip sitters. The shaman warning Tom not to look at any mirrors before confusing him for Wick again and closing the door to a mirror. I gotta give it to Matthew Rhys's performance here because he is giving the reactions anybody in his situation would, considering it's an absolute nightmare of a situation altogether. Either way, Tom begins his journey of flashing in and out of reality and skipping very important cutscenes of the episode, with Tom immediately jumping ahead to Patricia admitting in his office that Evan is gone. Bashir shows up and has to take Patricia to the station as people from her recent party are trying to press charges, her leaving Tom by himself to trip out alone. Well, not completely alone, I guess. Wick goes to visit Jerry, who's wearing a very interesting necklace, I might add, with Jerry alluding to the fact that her and Wick had a relationship that her father wasn't a huge fan of, as Wick would keep Jerry out late at night. Either way, Jerry helps Wick decipher the letter, which claims, "I do not comprehend the nature of the curse on this island. I do know its heart beats inside of a cylinder that my husband wears around his neck that will crush my throat. His hands, this plague, death comes for each of us, but I fear to me the first. I know not how, but who. And of course, he's here with me. And I say all this in jest. And with that, I retire." Either way, cutting back to Tom, who's still recovering from being attacked by the No-Eyed Man, and skipping yet more cutscenes to land in front of an angry mob filled with people who are mad at him for establishing a curfew. He blacks out again and wakes up alone with a sentence written on the board claiming, "When I turn around, everyone else close their eyes." Tom then flashes forward once more, waking back up with Jerry, Wick, and Patricia. Jerry claiming that there was only one plague that ever took place on the island, and that was in 1702. Tom suddenly claiming if they gave him a paintbrush, he could tell them whatever they needed to know, which makes me wonder if some of the paintings we've seen throughout the island so far are actually a direct result of someone taking this true sight mushroom altogether. But unfortunately, due to some whispers in his own mind, he begins to worry about Evan again, making a run for it before waking up in Rosemary's car. He decides he doesn't want to hang out with Rosemary and blacks out yet again, waking up yet again at a gas station called Skull, which is a very interesting name. In Scandinavian, it represents good health or cheers, but Tom does not have a good time within this gas station. He himself covered in hot dog in the driver's seat and finding his loafer surrounded by milk. It's while Tom is on this magical mushroom journey that Evan is off to hang out with his friends, all of them smoking and showing off the house of the Boogeyman to the girls, claiming he was a guy who lost his mind and reached out to multiple girls over the phone before he eventually went out to kill them all. And here we get the reveal that despite how much the police shot at him, he just wouldn't die, deciding instead to lock him in the basement somewhere and sealing him in concrete. Could this be the same room we saw with the electric chairs and the iron doors? And does this imply that the guy is still alive and essentially immortal? We do know there's some strange stuff with ages going on around this town, so that's not too far-fetched. Either way, Evan is dared to go into the house despite one of the gals seeing something moving in the window. As he walks up, we can see what looks like blood on the leaves, and as he goes to actually open the door, Bashir stops him, ordering him away from the house and potentially saving his life. This being the second time Bashir as a character has helped our characters avoid something really terrible. I would be really happy if Bashir had a family history of taking care of the island and its residents during all this chaos. Either way, Evan and Bashir have a very wholesome conversation, with Evan even asking if he can flip him off as he walks away. Bashir, while being supportive, isn't willing to go that far. Evan heads home and runs into a still tripping out Tom, who awkwardly peers against the windows to look for him. This would definitely be embarrassing for anyone, but would also be very creepy from any other perspective. Either way, Evan and Tom argue, and Evan admits that he thinks Tom is such a bad mayor that he thinks his only success is in controlling Evan, with Tom letting him know that he may feel guilty one day for the words he's saying. That's when Evan finally asks the question and wondering why he isn't ever allowed to leave the island. Tom trying to explain that it was just something that was important to his mother, but Evan promises that one day he'll leave and he will never come back. Tom closing the door on him and suddenly witnessing the fireworks that were supposed to be cancelled. Tom tries to throw up as he's feeling extremely nauseous when he suddenly starts getting visions of his late pregnant wife, Lauren. It seems they were actually attempting to leave the island while she was pregnant, and suddenly, while on the boat, couldn't see anything and spontaneously went blind. Now, I did see online from a maternity nurse that it's possible in the late trimester a woman can develop preeclampsia and later HELLP syndrome, which can cause seizures, blurred vision, sometimes blindness, and if not properly treated, death. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't some weird curse going on as well, but this is what the doctors could have told Tom in regards to it being a childbirth complication issue, leaving Lauren stuck in a very strange state until presumably she was killed or died naturally. We cut back to Tom, who begins to pray for help in protecting his son, suddenly being visited by who I can only assume is not God and some sort of dark entity in the doorway. That is before the episode finally fades to black and we don't get to see what Tom sees. Now, I personally have some theories for where the next episode could be headed, and spoiler warning if you haven't watched the trailer shots and don't want any clues. But I'm thinking part of Tom's mushroom trip will be him flashing back to the past and bearing witness to some of what went down with the old Salem trials. Or I guess witch trials. Either way, I really enjoy how they're slowly building up the lore of the Boogeyman on this island and actually making him a threat. Though, if the Boogeyman was buried alive under concrete and presumably still there, who was lumbering around his old house when Evan showed up? To be fair, things started going crazy on the island after we bore witness to those iron doors, so it's very possible he just busted out due to all the supernatural chaos. But there's also another possibility that one of the characters on the island has more direct relations to the Boogeyman than anyone's willing to admit. I still don't fully trust Jerry and think she's definitely up to something, or at least part of the problem that caused all this. Either way, cutting back to Evan, he's getting more and more involved in the story to the point where his story can really only end with him either dying once he leaves the island or leaving the island and leaving Tom to wonder if he actually made it or not. Either way, I wouldn't be surprised if it was later revealed that when Lauren ended up going into that weird state, she gave birth on the boat and not on the island, thus allowing Evan to be capable of leaving the island without any problems. This further solidifying how these beliefs and superstitions and being ruled by fear can really screw up aspects of your life and others, meaning Tom essentially imprisoned his son on the island for nothing. I really enjoyed this episode because it was the first one that didn't feel like a monster of the week, and it really felt cool to see everyone searching for answers. The blackouts were used very cleverly in a very humorous way, and it was just really a fun episode altogether. But I want to know what you guys think. Did you enjoy the episode? Do you also watch From and find it interesting that they both had mushroom trips so close to each other? And where do you think the story is going with the Boogeyman? By the way, appreciate your feedback, appreciate your support, and remember to never take mushrooms from a shaman that looks like he's from a Napoleon Dynamite.